Okay, we're just gonna get right into another, I guess, episode vlog of Guy Sits in Chair. I'm not sitting in a chair, but might as well be Guy Sits in Chair. And yeah, looking at the feedback from last time, we'll try to focus this more on the structure that's given to us for Exploration B. And as such, I can always provide the captions, eventually post-editing, and that'll kind of provide a direction as to where we're going to go. And based off what's given for Exploration B's assignment, we just go right in that order, make it nice and simple, nice and easy. Of course, this week's topic was, at least from what I understood, it's teacher activism, or teachers activists, and how teachers, or us teachers in training, are able to kind of move needles and get certain messages across that need to be told in order for, I guess, students to be able to, I won't say do their thing, but we'll get to that by the end of this. So let's just get right into it. Problem number one, actually I'll put it somewhere, hopefully between my hands, but we'll see. Probably not. It'll probably be at the bottom. It is a rather long one. It says, analyze your experience by connecting it to the articles you have chosen to read and the videos you have chosen to watch this week. Great one. Got my trusty notebook. So there was a lot to go through. At least 5 videos and at least 3 articles. It went by. Let's just say that. So the first story I want to go through is a lot of the first connections I made. Let's look at the one by Reclaim Muslims as the Protagonist by Bassama Bunadi. Yeah, I thought this was a really insightful piece as for a view on Muslims. Yeah, so let's see what I wrote here. Yeah, I guess his goal was to kind of focus that there's an idea of the otherization on Muslim peoples. There's a certain representation that is associated with like a lot of negative connotations in like certain medias, and yeah, there was a really good quote where as soon as that was a different show, or was it? Yeah, there's a narrative that that's a different thing. Yeah, okay, yeah. So his idea was to kind of see Muslims as a protagonist of their own story. He wanted to get the idea that they have their own stories, and to focus more on Muslim experience versus Islamic beliefs. To teach empathy, an empathy-based approach rather than solution-based. And that, now here's an interesting part, was that his idea that standardized education is a way to maintain a national narrative. Okay, so for example, like certain peoples who come across westernized education, they might be able to understand what's being presented to them, but not see themselves represented in it. So it kind of brings a lot of questions as to like what's going on, like why is this knowledge presented to me as like a student who might not be necessarily Western. Yeah, and that there's an element of exclusion. Labels are relative, do not accurately describe the people being discussed. So yeah, again, it all goes kind of into the whole national narrative. They don't necessarily see themselves reflected in what is being taught. So how is it that we can kind of be more inclusive towards not just Muslims, but anyone who is out of, who came from outside the Western kind of education system, is to, teach experiences and really explore that idea. Yeah, so the reason why I thought this one was a really interesting piece in particular was because, okay, so let's just get into it. and this kind of ties into some of the readings I did on the Chelsea Vowels book too. So in my country, in Indonesia, most of the country is Islamic, right? They identify as Muslim or Islam, and no, not too long, well, relatively speaking, this is a national identification card called a KTP, and before, religion actually used to be part of it. There used to be a field for religion, and given that a lot of the population was Islamic or Muslim, they would put that as their religion, right? Now here's the thing, is that they would self-identify as a Muslim, and they would, put that on the card, and then they would print the card, and there you go. They have a card that says that they're Muslim, they identify as Muslim. Going back now, fast forward nowadays, that's not a part of the identification card anymore. They still use the same kind of identification card, but the religion is no longer printed on it. It's no longer disclosed. I don't think it's even an option. And it's kind of a way, I guess the way I see it is that it is kind of loosening up on that exclusion idea that, a really strong dominant Muslim presence in Indonesia is like, the hegemony or whatever. But in a ways, it is. At least I hope it leads to less, discriminating. Although I know that happens anyways nowadays. It still happens. And what I want to kind of bring that towards is an article that I read this week for my book club reading. And the gist of it is that a woman applied for her Indigenous status card and hasn't received it in about 2 years. And this was fairly recently. She applied for it, I think, 2019 or something. I gotta get my facts checked. But anyways, she never got it. To this day, she still hasn't received it. This article was published in May of this year. So she thought it was because of COVID, right? No delays, whatever. It's bound to happen. But then she kept on waiting, and she never received her status card. Funny enough is that her daughter, who also applied for a status card, got hers like relatively quick. Like right, probably before the pandemic. I think, yeah, received it within like only 6 to 8 weeks, which is, I think the article says like it's supposed to come around that time. So now there's an idea that the daughter received the status card, but the mother didn't. Like the woman in the article, she did not receive it. And it's all speculation at this point. She's been like hounding the government, like, hey, where's my status card? And she hounds them like daily, weekly, very frequently to, ask how her status is going, or her status with the status card. And the belief was that, the government lost it. She has to reapply with all her information and wait again. That's what the government tells her. So obviously she has to go and do that. But is it a matter of, again, being in like kind of like exclusive? Is it some kind of like discriminatory work behind the scenes? I don't want to be that that person who just like tinfoil hat conspiracy theory thing, but I mean it could be an element of some kind of just being exclusive and not giving her the status. And that also ties into the reading for this week with Chelsea Vowell about the status cards. So she wrote a really long piece on what it means to have status. And there's a whole bunch of really complicated diagrams that says like this person can apply for status if, I think, what was it? A non-status woman marries a status male, she can then gain status. But if it's the other way around, if a indigenous woman were to marry into like a settler, then she would lose her status. Or something like their children would have a different kind of status, like a C2 status, right? And the point of this is that I want to make is that it is an idea that the idea of a status, or what it means to be indigenous, in this regard, it's that like for the Indian status is like it's a definition set up by the government at that time. It's not how do I say? It's not self-identifying. It's this is tough to unpack. It's a status made by the government to impart certain entitlements to those who have it. It's not, it kind of takes away from the idea of being able to self-identify. Okay, so the difference between, though at least what I see, is that in the Indonesian times with the Islamic or the religion text on the card, is that people are able to self-identify themselves as Muslim. They would be like, okay, yep, you just print it, you are Muslim. This is how you identify on your status card. They kind of, at least it seems to me that they accept, yep, this is who you are. But with the Canadian Indian Act and the status, and like status of status Indians, it's like a certain, you have to meet a certain qualifications or something set up by the government or the settlers at the time to define what exactly makes you an Indian, right? What do you qualify? Like they're telling them who they are. They're not letting them self-identify. It's kind of taking away the power. And of course, like there's reasons like they want to limit, I guess, how much they have to reimburse or like give entitlements. That's, I mean, that seems to be a given, right? And yeah, that kind of thing, you're taking away the power to be able to self-identify from people who do have indigenous status, because again, she also goes into the large chapter of what is a Métis, right? The big M, little m. It goes way beyond just blood. There's like cultures, traditions, and family values that are there that makes her like Métis, right? It's not just about the blood. It's like the little m versus the big M. So now where we're going with this is that there is, I always have this metaphor. I call it the foundational Jenga. You know Jenga, right? It's like the game that you take little pieces from the foundations and you stack it up, and it gets more tilted as you keep building it up, right? It gets more and more unstable, and it keeps teetering, right? So the way I always envision forms of systemic injustice is that we have a foundation built on the very bottom, and from there, people just keep piling things on top of it, right? So it kind of looks like an inverted pyramid, but a really messy one built with like planks, right? And built on this tiny foundation, but you keep adding to it, and you have so many layers of this Jenga pyramid, which is horribly unstable and sits on this tiny piece that's foundational. As soon as you take out the bottom piece, everything above it will crumble. A lot of chaos and like will just ensue. Everything here will just collapse on itself. And that's not actually, and I don't mean that as form of liberation. I mean that as like just utter systemic chaos. Okay, so the way I see the Indian Act, for example, is like one of these things. It's a system that's definitely not not completely like empowering or beneficial, but it's necessary in a way for like these imparted benefits for the indigenous and Indian status people. So it's like a weird system where we have to do away with it, but we can't just take away the foundation, because everything else that's built upon it will just crumble. That's the way I see things. Yeah. So let's take a quick cut from there. I think this has been a pretty long piece, so we'll get to the next section soon.